Welcome to the March 23rd, 2021 Norfolk Planning Board meeting. This is Walter Byron, Planning Board Chair, and permit me to confirm that all members are present this evening. So Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Mr. Searle?
Here.
Mr. Hunt?
Here. Here.
Peck? Mr. Peck?
Here.
And we also have with us this evening the town planner, Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
Our administrative assistant, Betsy Vigil, is now working with the Board of Health this evening and may join us later. So good evening. This open meeting of the Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation, but this meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the planning board is convening via the Zoom application as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Each vote this evening will be taken by roll call vote. So with that introduction, let us turn to our agenda this evening. Chris is with us too. I didn't see him earlier. Chris is our associate member. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, first item on the agenda is Toils End Farm Fox Run Subdivision Drain Line Review with Pulte Homes. As all of you know, we've been working with Pulte back and forth, negotiating repairs to the drainage system in that development over there. And there is a letter which Rich has drafted and I have critiqued, which should be available on the screen here in a moment.
Can you, just to be sure, you can see the agenda, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Scroll down to the letter.
Okay, I can see the beginning of it. There we go.
Okay.
So this letter has been worked on today and is in draft form, but I think it's pretty close to the final version, if not the final version. And for those of you on the board, I presume that you've had a chance to at least peruse the letter, if not read it rigorously. And so I'd ask you if there are any corrections or improvements to the letter that you recommend. Somebody is interfering with the conduct of the meeting here by not muting themselves. Would you please mute yourself? Josephine, I'm not sure who Josephine is, but please would you mute?
All right, I'm going to mute everybody and then take. All right, you can take yourself off mute.
Whoever it is.
All right, let me scroll through to see who is.
There's only the five of us look like we're off mute.
Yeah. Who's... All right, I don't hear it now.
Okay, so one more time. I hope all the members of the board have had a chance to at least peruse the letter. Are there any changes, improvements that you recommend?
I would say that it's Josephine because her box is lighting up every time she speaks, regardless that the mute is on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Josephine, would you be so kind as to log off and log back on?
Walter, this is Chad. I reviewed the letter and I was a little, I guess, confused with the kind of the chronological order of it.
Chad, the chronological order had been revised in the last edition, so I hope you got the last edition here.
The one
Well,
maybe not. Maybe
look at the
not.
one, look at the one on the board here,
Okay.
if you can see it on the screen.
Yep. I'm looking at it now.
Okay.
All right, can you see it? No.
Yes, I thought I had changed the order here.
Are there still 10 bullet points? Or
So-
this is new and there's only 9?
No, there's the 10th one's on the next page.
Okay.
Um,
My comment would be is there's some overlap and redundancy in some of these bullet points, and that may be intentional, but it doesn't seem as streamlined as it could be. And one thing that I do have a question on is number 4. It says Pulte will hire a video company. So it doesn't, at least I don't see it. It doesn't clearly state that we want this videoed at a certain time. It's my understanding we want it videoed 12 months after it gets lined, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't state that, at least that I see in here, unless I'm missing it.
That's a good point. We ought to fix that.
Um,
Also, I would say, Chad, that the version that you're looking at is not the latest one that I gave back to Rich. So,
Oh, okay.
Uh,
This looks similar to the version that I asked Rich some questions because I was like, is this the order that I understand? And it's similar to this. But yeah, number 4, I do think we need to put something in there that states 12 months after it's live, we want it videoed.
yep.
And then the other, at the end, it says we'll release the bond 12 months after the road's been accepted.
Mhm.
And why is that? Maybe we talked about that and I missed it. I don't remember why we were saying let's hold the bond for another 12 months after it's been accepted.
So
that's number 10.
Yeah, I understand. It's
number 10, the bond, maybe we could clarify it in there. That's the new bond, not the
Right.
old bond.
no, it says that. It says new bond.
Yeah,
That's for the protection of the town. We get one more chance to say, hey, wait a minute. If something happens in the year after we accept it, we've still got some leverage.
So we're not going to video it, right?
Oh,
You know, 12 months after, we're not going to video. So it's just if we have some weird pipe failure where the ground collapses, then we've got some security, right?
That's right. Or in some indication where a certain section collapses, we could require a video of the rest of it.
Right. We've got some weird backup, something's not flowing right, ground collapses. I mean, there's a lot of different criteria that
Yeah,
could fall.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
When is the videotaping that's stated in bullet 4 occurring?
It should be a year after the lining is complete.
That's what I thought. But it could be later than the release, earlier than the release of the bond, because the bond is associated with the approval of the street. Is that correct? So there is a full 4 seasons of temperature change and trucks going over the changes. And then we're going to videotape it and compare the two videos and see if there's been any change. And releasing the bond is just a formality that's tied to the acceptance of the street.
Tied to the,
No,
it's tied to 12 months after the acceptance of the.
Yes, yes,
Right.
that's what, yeah, okay.
but Gary, I think this is where I think I understand it now, and I think I can clarify what you're asking, Gary, is, so if I understand this right, they're gonna line it, then 12 months later, we're gonna videotape it, DPW and Beta is gonna review it, then we'll go to street acceptance.
Right.
And then there's another 12 months after street acceptance to return the bond. Is that
You got it, Chad. You got
okay?
it.
Well, I didn't read in there that street acceptance was after the year after the fix. I thought street acceptance was a little bit more immediate, like right after the fix, you were putting it in. But that's
Well,
okay.
If you read this version of the letter, you could come to that conclusion. But
Right.
I think I've clarified that. Rich, I don't know why you don't have the latest version that I sent you.
It's okay. I think we all understand at this point what it was.
So this is my understanding of the chronological order, and I put some bullet points together. So we're requesting that they line the pipes. We then will establish, after the pipes are lined, we'll establish a new bond based upon certain criteria, cancel all the old bonds and give back whatever the difference. We're going to wait 12 months. We're going to video it. The video then gets reviewed by the DPW and Beta, and that they will submit the findings to the planning board. Then simultaneously, it can be run as a simultaneous task. Pulte can work with the DPW and Beta and finish all the punch list items so that once Beta submits the video analysis and all the punch list items are accepted, that can get submitted to the planning board for our recommendation to put it on the street acceptance list. Then 12 months after street acceptance, we'll release the bond. And then also in the meantime, Pulte's responsible for all the maintenance and plowing until street acceptance.
Until street acceptance. Yeah.
Right. So this is where I just was confused with reading this. It didn't follow that 12-month plus 12 months. And what was the other thing that I was confused about? I think it was, those were the main things, was the 12 months and 12 months.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You see on the screen your email? Those are the points.
Yep, that's the points I sent Rich this afternoon. I was like, yeah, am I getting this right? Because I'm not reading that in the letter.
All right, oh, I tell you what, since we're struggling to get the latest version, let me read what I
I have, Walter, I have yours on the screen.
Yep, there it is. Oh, so my other comment was, I wasn't sure if we want to put in, like on number 4 and number 5, you put, well, not actually, you crossed it out in 4. Number 5, you put in the Pulte may petition to the town in 2022. I mean, that's subjective to whether they've actually completed all those items.
well, that's what it says.
Right.
Provided, however, the lining shall be done 1 year prior to the town accepting the roads as public way, including a favorable report by Beta Group and
Okay.
the director.
Yep. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think what I ended up doing, my apologies, well, I didn't see you had, I just thought the prior version was okay, not that you had additional edits.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay,
what,
that's fine. We got it. We got it.
I do think number 2 needs to say something like after 12 months, 12 months after the lining is completed,
I agree.
the video will be performed.
I agree. I agree. All right, we got that taken care of.
Yep. So
John,
I would suggest that as a friendly addition.
And it is accepted as such. John, are you okay with this?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, Rich, thank you for that.
sorry for the confusion.
That's all
Oh,
right.
no.
We got there. Any other comments on this, this letter going to Pulte?
Did Josephine jump back on?
I don't know.
I see her on there now. I do.
Okay, well, that's good, but fortunately, whatever interference she was creating is not happening again.
Yes.
I had a question or two still. Who had hired the agent that filmed the drain pipe the last time, who was responsible for that? Did Pulte do that or did the town do that?
Pulte.
Pulte did that. And is it the same agent that originally filmed the drain pipes?
For the future one,
No, I think there's been two videos and all I'm saying is it doesn't say anywhere in the letter that we're just maintaining, rather than going to a new agent to do the filming, which could cause a whole new series of issues. Let's have the person that's most familiar with it, unless they have a problem doing it. But that would be my preference. Have the same people do the same job over again.
yeah, I think that's implied, but I know, well, so John Engdahl is on, if you
It's
want.
online, yep.
Yep, if you want to comment to that point.
You there, John?
I am.
Okay.
To which point would you like me to comment on?
About the video first.
Wayne's drains is in the previous videos.
Yep. And you intend to have them again?
We can have them do the future videos.
Okay. And what's the downstream process once the video is made? Does it pass through your organization first, or is it just distributed from Wayne's Drains to all three parties, Pulte, the DPW, and Beta?
Oh, it passes to us because we technically contract them to do it. So they'll give us hard copy and flash drives. We can distribute from there.
Okay. And that's what's happened in the past, John?
Yes.
Okay. Another comment I had put in, but again, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the acceptance of streets is town vote. Anything could go wrong, but we're syncing this to a town vote, and I guess that gave Pulte the right to petition should something go wrong. Really, what we're trying to say, I think, in your letter, Walter, was that there's a certain duration that should go by. 1 year, trucks went over it. It saw all the seasons. We go back in, we film it. If everything's okay, we should start to close down and release the bonds. I know that's the intent of everything. I just didn't want to get it tied to a vote, let's say, that for any reason could get delayed.
Well, it's the recommendation by the planning board to the select person and the town meeting, select board and the town meeting will be conditioned on getting a favorable report from Beta and DPW.
Yep. Yeah, and that would have been beforehand. Again, I'm just cautious that something couldn't go wrong with a vote. The streets are voted on independently, am I correct? They're not bundled together.
Well, they would be bundled together.
They're usually bundled.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'd be bundled in this case. It's all one development.
but it really wouldn't get on the warrant, Gary, unless the select board rather, had the recommendation from the planning board. And
Okay.
that wouldn't come until we got the favorable report from Beta and DPW.
Okay.
John Engdahl, you said you might have another comment?
I'd like to obviously see the letter prior to just the discussion, because there are some points in here we don't necessarily agree with.
Okay,
or
well,
or understand, quite honestly.
the letter will we'll have one more run by this offline tomorrow, and then we'll get the letter in your hands, and then we can go from there.
Is it worth asking some of the questions now, or should we wait for, because we will respond to this obviously via letter.
Yeah, you're welcome to ask now if you wish.
Well, I'm trying to understand why we would video lines and
soil moisture, things like
are
that.
satisfactory as the last two.
from place to place. But the atmosphere,
I guess I understand, but there's no reason in the areas that are deemed satisfactory today they've never had issue prior to, and they're all,
Well,
7, 8 years old.
Yeah, I understand, John. This process for for in situ lining is new to the town of Norfolk, and we really don't have a great deal of history on it. And running a video camera through those lines that were lined and deemed satisfactory after another year of usage would certainly raise the confidence level that that process is giving us a satisfactory drain system.
Oh, I don't have any issue, Walter, with videoing what is lying.
We want to video the thing, John, to make sure that all of the parts that were not lining, that were deemed inconsequential cracks, minor cracks, we want to make sure that those cracks are still inconsequential.
Yeah, they remain satisfactory.
Exactly. We want to make sure something didn't turn from a cosmetic to a structural crack because they were never touched. That's the reason for the whole lining.
Yep. All right, John, thank you for your questions. So as I say, we'll have another run at this letter tomorrow, clean it up, make sure we get the last T crossed and I dotted, and we'll get it off to you, and then you can respond and we'll go from there.
So can I expect that once we do a response, we'll probably further discussion at the next meeting?
Well, at some point, we've got to call a halt to this and get on with it. And that was what the hope was, that this letter would drive us to that point. But if you've got some objections, we'll have another round with you.
Well, I think some of the items in this letter is not what I thought we had discussed at the prior meeting.
Well, that may be, but this is our position. At any rate, let's proceed, and we'll have another go if you have further objections.
I think at least for this evening, you should get a vote of the board on this letter, at least with the edit, with the
edit on, certainly on item number 2, yeah.
on the video, and then you can release the letter.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt this letter to Pulte as visible on the screen with that amendment.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Weddleton,
Aye.
Mr. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Peck,
Aye.
Mr. Searle,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Thank you all, gentlemen, and let's proceed to our next item.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you one question on the prior item just before we get off it?
Certainly.
Sure. My name's Don Bornstein. I'm attorney for Pulte Homes. I had sat in on your last meeting and been sitting on this one. Well, is there any direction from the board as to how we might discuss this letter, either with with staff or the planner between now and the board's next meeting? So we use that meeting most efficiently to discuss the items raised in the letter?
Absolutely. You can direct your questions to Rich, and that'll get you going, and should have a dialogue with Rich between now and the next meetings, which is in 2 weeks, by the way.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next item on the agenda is 7 Hill Street. You want to take us through this, Rich?
Sure. For the board's background, 7 Hill Street was approved back in 2018. Actually, you know what? This is wrong. Excuse me, 2019, right? No, sorry. I guess time flies. 2018 for 9 duplex units which is 7 Hill Street. The it's in your packet, there's been 2 extensions.
Mhm.
What the applicant is wishing to do is to modify the approval to allow for 3-bedroom as part of the duplex units. There was no, and by way of background, the zoning bylaw doesn't regulate bedroom types. It just regulates the density of it in the C1D overlay district. But there is reference, so in the original approval, there was the duplex units that were referenced within the decision do show 2-bedroom units. The change is coming about from the changes to the Board of Health regulations, which now are in line with Title V. So there is the ability, the applicant, Mr. Cogliari, has submitted to the Board of Health approval for 3 bedrooms, to support a 3-bedroom for each one of the units for a septic system. So essentially, this minor modification would be to allow for the flexibility to do 3-bedroom units if need be the case based on market demand, and would be done within the footprint of the building envelope of each unit. So there wouldn't be any changes as far as the footprint goes, nor there might be some adjustments of windows and so forth, but essentially it's not expanding any of the footprints of each of the duplex units. And in your packet, there was 2 previous extensions. He's looking for another extension to extend the permit to be valid.
Okay. Also in the packet this evening was a layout of the site with the units positioned on it, as I recall.
Yeah, I included that for your.
Well, let's see. Just one thing here.
Go ahead.
The original layout that Al brought forward to the board was for the same number of units in
Yep.
pretty much the same pattern.
Yeah, so
But a little ways along, he changed it a little bit. Came in with a different layout of a different pattern of disposition of the units on the ground, and that change is the one that you've included in the this fella right here. Yeah, that's different than the one we approved. It's probably the same number of units and probably is going to be fine. But I do recall that we asked if we could take a look at it just to make sure that when he rearranged the things, the drainage was okay. And we never did that. It's not a big deal, but I just like to make sure the board's comfortable with the drainage on site now that he's rearranged the units.
I don't recall that.
Right, Walter, we signed these drawings, so we must have seen them before.
No, we
Yeah.
didn't sign these drawings. We signed a different set of drawings.
The drawings on
They're
the screen are signed.
Yeah, so
The ones I rearranged, Walter, I was,
Oh, Al, you're there. Okay.
yeah, I rearranged some units. I was going to propose 2 less units with garages. And I, in the end, didn't do that. I put them forward and then never put it on the agenda. I think that's what you may be referring to.
Okay. Well, Aaron's correct also that these are signed drawings. So I guess my
Yeah.
point is not valid.
The reason I brought this to Rich was because there's the regulations for the Board of Health have changed from the time the system was designed. We designed it for 2 bedrooms plus a garbage disposal.
Yep.
And now the same system is, equivalent to 3 bedrooms. So I read through the decision and it didn't limit to us to 3 bedrooms, but, for housekeeping, I just wanted to bring this to your attention so it didn't fester down the line
Right.
at a building permit stage.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Al. Comments from board members for this request for making a change to include 3 bedrooms versus 2?
I like the clarity on that for down the road. And also, he's not changing any footprints, so really, it's not material to us.
Yeah, understood.
The worst, John, the worst thing I think I'd do is maybe change a roof line in the back, but I don't even think I have to do that. Or a window placement here or there.
Yeah, that's what Richard mentioned. That's just minor cosmetic stuff. But the footprint is the same, the drainage will be the same,
Yep.
and the septic area is gonna be the same, so everything is pretty much the same.
Yep.
I was just concerned earlier that the septic footprint and the drainage would be different with when he rearranged the units on the ground, but that's behind us now. So, okay, Aaron, you okay with this?
In concept, yes, but I think, Walter, to avoid further confusion over paperwork and whatnot, and I appreciate Al's attempt to get in front of this, but there is nothing written about what the actual request is this evening. Right? Everything we're looking at is something that we previously had seen or approved, and there's no edits to it. So are we just approving it in concept this evening and we're going to see something written, or what's the procedure here? What's being asked of us?
I'm requesting that the units that you approved previously that showed a footprint that's existing on the signed plans and depicts an interior design of 2 bedrooms to become a interior design of 3 bedrooms on the same footprint.
Yep, totally. I totally understand that. I just, like, how are we approving our discussion this evening? Like, what, from a formality standpoint, I feel like there should be something written down somewhere, right?
I think we could add something to the,
Will be. So if you vote,
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, John.
I think we can add something to the decision, just clarifying that these units may be either 2 or 3 bedrooms, that's all. Just an
Yep.
addendum to the decision.
Yeah. Okay.
so the outcome of this will be I'll draft a certificate which will reference this minor modification, and we'll clarify in that point for the record. That'll be
And you'll revise the decision so to reflect it?
I'll issue a separate decision that'll be incorporated in reference to this.
I got you. Okay, that's good. Sure. Chad, do you have any questions?
Oh, hold on
No
a second, Walter.
questions, no concerns.
Okay.
So,
Aaron?
Walter, just sorry, real quick. So just to be clear, the only
Yep.
thing in the document that Rich is going to prepare is this change from 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms.
That's as far as I know.
Correct.
I'm good.
Gary?
Is there, I know this is a result of evaluation of the garbage disposal. Does that mean that moving forward, we're eliminating the garbage disposal and adding an extra bedroom? And is that part of the change? And does that need to be stated anywhere?
I don't believe so. I believe that will just go when he applies to the Board of Health for the septic system. That'll be incorporated in the Board of Health plan.
And John, that plan is in front of Wade.
Right.
And we changed it from the 2 bedroom to the 3 bedroom and eliminated the garbage disposal on the plan.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we need a motion to accept this as a minor modification to the decision. Which
So moved.
And we have a second.
Second,
We have a second. All right. All right. So we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Weddleton,
aye.
Mr. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Peck,
Aye.
Mr. Searle.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, Al.
I have one question. Is that a vote for both or a vote for
No.
just,
That's a vote for the 3 bedroom. Now we'll come to the second one.
thank you.
All right. The second one is a request for an extension until June 28, 2022.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on this point before we vote? I guess I get, go ahead.
Al, I mean, the world's a different place than it was a year ago when you asked for an extension, but out of curiosity, when do you think that you might break ground?
Well, I have been in a holding pattern because of 7 Hill Street.
I understand.
And I think I feel comfortable with it over there. So I'm just juggling whether I want to sell this project to an individual who has strong interest in buying it, or I want to do it myself.
Okay.
And I'm going to decide that probably over the next 2 weeks. Now that once I get my septic approval, I'll figure out which way I want to go. I just wanted to make sure that I knew what was going on over at this across the street before I did this. So I think I'm
thank you.
okay with over there, but you never know.
Yeah, okay. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on this. Mr. Weddleton,
Aye.
Mr. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Peck,
Aye.
Mr. Searle,
Aye.
chair votes aye. All right, Al, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, next item on the agenda is 123 Seekonk Street / 7 Fruit Street, discussion of earth removal complaint. Let's see, Rich, would you be so, yeah, I think you're going there. Would you be so kind as to scroll up and find the appropriate bylaw?
Yeah, I think I might just open it up separately so we can.
Whatever.
Yeah.
There
Now,
it is. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
I think that'll.
Okay, Rich, why don't you tell us about the nature of the complaint first?
Sure. So there was a complaint that was submitted to the town by Mrs. Clark about the removal of earth and technically it's 7 Fruit Street. It's not 121 or 123 Seekonk Street. That's why I just clarified on the agenda and whether or not earth removal permit was needed for what the work was going on at the property. And so in the course of looking into, as you know, the earth removal bylaw, I think some of the prevailing thought was that the earth removal bylaw, although the planning board issues the permits, that if the enforcement arm of it was through the building department. However, that's not the case. The enforcement arm related to this bylaw is through the Norfolk Police Department. That being the situation, who handles the enforcement, it really need to be something that the board as a body decided whether or not there's compliance or non-compliance relative to the earth removal bylaw going on at 7 Fruit Street. So we'll call your attention to which section 1, well, B1, which talks about earth removal related to a farm, nursery, or cemetery. It does have some qualifications, how much earth can be removed over a 3-year period. But there's some discussion whether or not anything that's going on there is in violation of the bylaw, number one, and whether or not anything is triggering any action by the planning board as it relates to the activity going on there. As I mentioned, since it's a planning board matter, I'm not empowered as the agent here. I'm just working with the board to help facilitate things. So I have no enforcement either over this. So it's really the interpretation of the planning board, whether or not any action is needed or not.
Okay. All right, thank you. Well, let's see, as I read this, it says, B1 says removal of earth from an operating farm, nursery, or cemetery, but only to the extent that the removal is necessary for the current operations of the farm, nursery, or cemetery, and only if the total volume of earth to be removed does not exceed 5,000 cubic yards during any 3-year period. Now, absent from that language is any requirement from of the property owner to notify the board. I mean, it's the way it's written, it's by right. The property owner has the right to remove 5,000, up to 5,000 cubic yards over a 3-year period. That's how I read it. But I'd be interested in seeing how the rest of the board reads it.
Walter, I would suggest that Rich contacts the owner and ask him what his intention is for moving the material. Have him assure us he's not going to remove 5,000 feet or more. And after that, we can decide whether we want to sort of indicate where the traffic pattern should be, which is like in a normal earth removal. And we could contact the DPW to see if they have a preference to where the earth travels out of there. But until anybody has proved the violation, there is no violation, and the burden would be on somebody making that complaint or the town. So I would suggest at this point, follow the bylaw, find out what his intent is and bring that back to the board, and we can decide whether we want to put any requirements on that removal.
So just for, for the record, John, I did hear from Mr. Brogan today. His intention is to clear the land, to be able to expand, to be able to use horses as a farm on that portion of the property.
In that case, I would suggest that you contact the DPW. And since this is going to be an intermittent hauling now and then, why don't you find out if they have any preference on how the truck should be leaving and entering that site?
Hello.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello, who is this?
This is Mr. Brogan.
Hello, Mr. Brogan.
How are you?
Good, sir.
So I will be nowhere near removing 5,000 yards at all. I am going to remove as little as possible and equalize the site as best as possible. But it's a hill and horses don't graze on hills. They graze on flat areas. So some dirt will leave. It leaves via Seekonk Street to Main Street, 2 busiest streets in the town. We're not going any other way. So that's it. And I'm fully with you that if I want to go over 5,000 yards, then I need to come see you and get a permit. But under 5,000, it's by right.
Mr. Brogan, if Rich talks to the DPW and they suggest a different route for the trucks, you have no objection for that, do you?
No, sir. No, sir. I just figured the 2 busiest roads would be the best path.
Yeah, well, that's probably a good guess, but if the DPW says something else, I suppose we could.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I see someone else has raised their hand, Rich.
This is Sarah Clark.
Ms. Clark, you wish to speak? You may do so. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, as you've said, the removal of earth from an operating farm, nursery, or cemetery, but only to the extent that this removal is necessary for the current operation of the farm, nursery, or cemetery, and only if the total volume of earth to be removed does not exceed 5,000 cubic yards during any 3-year period. Any person or entity claiming an exemption under this clause must first notify the board of the claim, the basis for the claim, and must receive a written acknowledgement from said board. In its acknowledgement, the board may impose any reasonable restrictions. Just to give you some background information on this, back in January, I exchanged some emails with Mr. Bullock because at that time, the neighborhood started to notice that there was clear cutting of trees, that the land had been cleared, and that the area had been excavated. At the time, no earth removal had occurred. So I reached out to Mr. Bullock to ask him, is Mr. Brogan, does he have a building permit? Does he have a variance? Does he have a license? Is he building a residential structure or a non-residential structure? Because as you well know, you can't be clear cutting, excavating, and performing earth removal if you have not already gone to the planning board and received.
Just a correction there. A homeowner is allowed to clear cut his whole lot without any notification or any permits. A builder cannot, but a homeowner can clear cut every tree in his lot.
Well, he can clear cut every tree in his lot if he's not building a residential structure. A residential structure,
No, any homeowner, it doesn't residential or not, any homeowner can clear cut his lot.
gee, I don't know, Mr. Weddleton. I'll have to go back to my bylaw. I know it's D1.
You're welcome to, and you can also call Bob on that too, because we've been through this before.
Yep.
Once we sell something with all of these side and front setbacks maintained, the owner can go in and clear every single tree on the lot, which is ironic, but that's our laws.
Okay, well, regardless of that, we're now into not only clear cutting, but excavation and gravel remover. And the way I read this bylaw is, number one, Mr. Brogan is claiming farm exemption. And in order to claim farm exemption, he then was supposed to go to the planning board.
No,
No,
Yeah.
that's not
No, he wasn't.
correct.
no, that's not correct.
And let me just preface the conversation. Our bylaws are so involved and so multi-layered. Most people in this town, including members of our board, have no idea of many of the subtleties of some of the bylaws. So I appreciate your point. It seems like an honest mistake. And my suggestion of what I asked Rich to do is what exactly the planning board should do when this is notified. We appreciate you for finding the bylaw and telling us. And I think that when he complies with what we did, then he'll be in compliance of the bylaw.
So I guess, why is it then the bylaw reads that any
You know, we don't
person
have to sort of read
who
that.
claims his
Nobody can
exemption,
see that. Also, we'll see things like, you know, when a watershed burns, and obviously that's happening in a lot of parts of the country.
Who is this? Who is speaking, sir? Who is that?
I think he just went on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Someone interrupted us. Please continue.
thank you, Chairman Byron. The bylaws words are very clear, and it says any person or entity claiming an exemption under this clause. So,
But he's not claiming exemption. He's up under the first sentence there, doing things by right.
but he's allowed to have this exemption, Chairman Byron, because he is a farm. If he wasn't a farm, he would have had to fill out an earth removal permit, and he would have provided the planning board an explanation as to the fact that he was only removing 500 cubic yards of fill, and there would be a public meeting. But because Mr. Brogan is a farm, he can claim this entity.
That's
But
right.
when he
That's right.
claims this entity, he first, the word first is, I think, paramount in this bylaw. He must first notify the board of the claim and the basis for the claim, that it's necessary for his farm, that he does have a farm exemption, and he must receive written acknowledgement from the planning board
No,
before.
I disagree with you.
Correct.
I disagree with you. That's not the way it's written. That's not the way I interpret it. And I just think you're making an error in the way you're reading the bylaw.
I have to agree with you, not agree with you, Mr. Chairman. It's very clear. It's under the same section of the bylaw. It's 2 paragraphs, and it says he must first notify the board.
He's going to do that. He didn't know, he wasn't aware of the law. He's going to do that.
But he didn't do that, Mr.
No, but
Weddleton.
he's going to though. There's 100 people in town that don't follow exactly the laws because they're overwhelming, and we just correct them and people work with us. That's the case here.
Can
Well,
I
But
speak? Can I speak?
who was that, Russ?
This is Mike Brogan. Can I
Sure,
speak?
Mike, go ahead.
Okay. I deal with these type of issues all the time, as most of you know, I'm to zoning and so forth. That law says that if I want to exceed the 5,000, then I need to go forward like a homeowner exceeding the 500. I am able to do that by right. If I want to exceed the 500 as a homeowner, I need an exemption. If I want to exceed the 5,000 as a farm owner, I need the exception. That's
I agree. That's the way I read it as well, Mike.
Me as well.
Me as well, that's correct.
and why does it say that any person or entity claiming the farm exemption, which the
Nope.
farm exemption is, Mr. Brogan can remove up to 5,000 cubic yards of fill. But before he engages in that, he must first notify the board of his claim of exemption and receive a letter
But it-
from the board.
But he's not
stating-
asking for an exemption. He is not asking for an exemption. He's doing what he is allowed by right. And we're just going over this again and again. I think we've covered that point. And I think we need to move on.
Well, I also want to bring up the fact that Mr. McCarthy seems to think that the police department has jurisdiction over this. I've exchanged emails with Chief Stone. And Chief Stone says he does not have jurisdiction over this. The people who have jurisdiction over this are the planning board and the building inspector, who is our zoning enforcement officer.
No, that's not accurate.
Mr. McCarthy, you have a copy of the letter from.
Walter, we're regressing here. I mean, the
Yeah,
issue is,
yeah.
this is a simple matter.
Yep, we've discussed it, John. I think we've come to the conclusion that Mr. Brogan is operating by right, and we should move on. In terms of clarification of who the enforcement officer is, Mr. McCarthy, you have 30 seconds to get that up there if you can, and
Mr. Chairman, it's on the middle of the screen. Earth
Yep.
Removal Bylaw, Article 7, Section 1H, fine, enforcement agent, police officer, fine schedule.
yeah.
Well, unfortunately, Chief Stone does not agree with that. My other question is, has the site been engineered to determine the amount of earth to be removed?
Doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
Well, how do we know that he hasn't removed them more than 5,000 cubic yards over a 3-year period?
Because when we put our restrictions, we're able to have him maintain a log to make sure that the amount taken isn't 5,000 feet, which is customarily done in all earth removals.
So you're going to ask for Mr. Brogan's log?
That'll be a decision of the board.
Okay, I would appreciate that because we have no way of knowing how much earth has been removed. This has been going on for 3 to 4 weeks with no oversight from the board. The piles of earth and boulders are inches to the abutters. There's just no regulation whatsoever. It's like a mining operation over there. And again, I want to strongly make a comment that I completely disagree with the board. And I'm afraid, as usual, the board, like other boards in town, kind of turn a blind eye when it comes to Mr. Brogan. This
All
isn't,
right, that's fine. We don't need any further comment on that. I think we've covered this topic. I appreciate your comments, but we're done. We're going to move on to the next topic. Next topic is 7 Shire Drive, request site plan minor modifications for parking. Rich, you want to take us?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, are you going to take a vote on this? Are you going to have something in writing about this?
There's nothing to vote on.
Nothing to vote on.
Well, you need to vote on the fact that Mr. Brogan needs a log. You need to vote on the fact that Mr. Brogan needs some kind of truck route by the DPW.
We don't need to vote on that. No. Ms. Clark, we're done with this topic. Please sign off.
anything for Mr. Brogan. That's what I'd say.
All right, Rich, talk to us about 7 Shire Drive.
Sure. So 7 Shire Drive was previously approved by the planning board for DeLuca and Sons Landscape Business. They're finally ready to proceed with their project upon submittal to the building department for their building permit. In the review of the application, building permit application by Mr. Bullock, he looked at the parking computation table. Sorry about this, thing's all over the place space-wise. And made the notation that the parking doesn't comply with the minimum requirements. And what had happened between the planning board approval, which had the footprint of the building and the elevations of the building, they added a mezzanine into the building where the storage area is. And by adding that mezzanine, it triggered the need for 3 additional parking places to comply with the parking bylaw for storage space. So I'll just scroll.
In other
back.
words, it added to the square footage of the building, in essence.
Yes, for the
Not the footprint, but the square footage.
correct, not the footprint, just with interior to the building.
And so that, Bob thinks that triggers a requirement for more parking.
Yeah, so because the parking table does require parking for storage. So when you add in the mezzanine, it increased the parking space requirement by 3. So the engineers made an adjustment to the site. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go to this other one to show you on the screen. Made an adjustment to add the 3 parking spaces on the site, but not just moving around the pavement, not actually increase the amount of coverage on the lot. So originally this bay here had 9, and then they added 2 here. Spaces.
Okay. So now does this comply with Bob Bullock's?
Yeah, so this plan,
Point.
parking layout plan complies with the zoning bylaw. So
Okay.
the applicant's requesting a minor modification to substitute this parking plan layout in order to obtain a building permit to do the project.
All right. Any discussion by board members?
So Rich, this changed the impervious square footage by 3 spots. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, actually, they shuffled they moved I don't know the exact, but the percent coverages remain the same.
Okay, they got creative.
They're creative.
Okay, so the impervious roughly stayed the same, so it shouldn't affect any other calcs.
No, correct. I looked at the coverage issue. It's 41.8%. And I do have the original. I can pull it up on the screen to show you.
Walter, could I ask one question?
Yeah, Al?
So I'm trying to understand this, that if a guy adds a mezzanine with a set of steps so he can store pipes or filter fabric or something like that, that you're requiring 3 extra parking spots. So let's just say that that building had a full basement. Would you require them to design all parking spots for the dimensions of the basement?
Yeah, so we would, now the interpretation, we would, based on the one, I can blow it up so you can see the schedule over there. But we would.
Isn't the determination that, or the interpretation, the usage of the building that demarks the storage and the applicable parking and the inner walls inside of the building? Is that the intent of the bylaw? I mean, I understand the office, it's specific to
Yeah.
parking,
Yeah.
but the warehouse and storage, I don't know, it just seems unnecessary to add asphalt in parking spots unless the applicant wants it.
Yeah, well, they're not, they shuffle the paved area around now in this case to accommodate the,
I understand that, Rich, but I think Al's making a good point. I guess if you took Bob Bullock's interpretation of that, Al, and the building had a basement, you might very well find that his interpretation would require a few more parking spots.
yeah, he would, no, he has, so when we've applied the bylaw,
Yeah,
in other cases, we have storage, we do compute a parking requirement based on warehouse storage space. So, I mean, it's,
Yeah, that's the footprint of the building. Whether there's
Yeah,
a
but
walk-up set of
there's-
stairs where a guy stocks pipe or
mean-
whether it's a walk set of downstairs into a basement. That's,
but you have to do it on,
we can go back and forth about what Mr. Bullock's judgment might have been, or we can ask Mr. Bullock, right? I mean,
yeah,
basements are typically unoccupied, so you could make a case that they're unoccupied. And the case to make for adding parking spaces is if this mezzanine is used for storage, what happens in 3 months when they have more employees and they put more employees on the mezzanine instead of storage? So, I mean, there's cases to be made in both directions. I think
they could also-
since they haven't added any impermeability to the site, it only adds more flexibility for them going forward. So, but if we want to know what Mr. Bullock's interpretation was, then we should ask Mr. Bullock.
yeah, I agree.
well,
Because somebody could easily expand the office space the day they get a occupancy permit, and that would impact even more than storage. I think they were being upfront with the storage.
well, so just to clarify, I am explaining his interpretation of it. So the mezzanine, so it's not accessible for office. There's no elevator because it's a second floor above the main floor, but it is used for storage of material. So that's why it's being included in the calculation for storage.
That's not how it works. And
I tell
that
you what,
impacts everything going forward.
yeah, I understand. I think that Aaron.
This applicant's made the adjustment. He didn't have an objection to do it. He was able to do it and keep the coverage the way it was. So he's
But, you know, Rich, Al raises an interesting question. If it's in an accessible area and it's used for storage, then what's the point of adding parking spaces to compensate for space that's inaccessible? So, I mean, you could add parking spaces when the space is expanded upon, if it's made accessible and people are put in it. So, I mean, we should follow up with Mr. Bullock just to make sure we're on the same page with his interpretation of the law.
I agree with Aaron. It isn't clear why we're doing this, but
And
I
they had
agree.
better-
It's
I
not
would-
clear, and this could set a precedence down the road.
and you got a $3,500 engineering bill to do it.
I might suggest that if you add in mezzanine, even for warehouse space, that you've hired more workers to work in the additional warehouse space and they have to park somewhere. So I'm sure there's some interpretation or part of a formula that supports it.
yeah, well,
But
that's
worth asking Mr. Bullock.
agreed. John, any comment?
No, I think that, don't forget, Bob Bullock enforces the bylaws that we make. Why don't you ask Rich to get a copy of the bylaw that he's using to make this decision? And we can read it for ourselves.
Yeah, agreed.
Good point.
Well, I can give you article. I can give you actually, maybe if you want, I can ask him for his analysis, his notes, and then you can read through his notes. Or maybe that will help, explain the determination.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, in the meantime,
But in
we've
any
got this in
case,
front of us. We've got this in front of us, so we need to take action on, or either to accept his interpretation for this evening and bless this as a minor modification or not. My instinct is to hold off until we get a further explanation from Bob before we bless this.
You want to hold the guy up though, Walter?
No, I don't. That's what's tugging at me, John.
Excuse me, Mr.
Is the
Chairman, may I
applicant,
speak?
is the applicant here this evening?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mike.
Mike DeLuca. So the reason that we made the change was I reread the rules and interpretation. So by the mezzanine, it actually adds to the usable square footage of the building. And if you look at the table that's on the site plan there, it delineates that the usable warehouse space went to 6,313 and the office space is 353. So each one of those, the square footage requires how many parking spaces. So that's why the mezzanine went to usable warehouse space, which changed the square footage from 6,000 up to roughly 6,600.
Okay, and so that's an explanation of why Bob required the extra parking spaces.
I think in your parking bylaw, Walter, you exclude bathrooms and utility rooms for storage. Just to make that note.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a net area.
But just, I mean, if I can interrupt, sorry, everybody, but I mean, the applicant is not objecting to what has been recommended by the building inspector. So, I mean, I'm happy to continue this discussion about interpretation of our bylaws with the building inspector, but I don't know that we need to hold up this applicant at this point in time.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Aaron.
Yeah, and I didn't want to, sorry to interrupt. I didn't want to go back and forth. It's not a huge deal to me to add the couple extra spots. Getting into the minusing out the square footage of hallways and bathrooms, I'm not opposed to adding a few extra spots to just make life easier, just to continue forward.
All right, any further discussion on this?
No.
All right, then Chair will entertain a motion to accept the addition of, was it 2 or 3, Rich?
3.
3 parking spaces as a minor modification to the site plan. At 7.
Just one addition to that, that the permeable area of the site was not impacted. So moved.
Okay.
So
Yep.
moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Weddleton,
Aye.
Mr. Peck,
Aye.
Mr. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Searle.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, Mike, you have your agreement. You may go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, next item on our agenda is discuss and vote to unbundle, or possibly vote to unbundle proposed annual town meeting B1 zoning district bylaw articles into zoning articles that require 2/3 vote and zoning articles that require a majority vote. We touched on this at our last meeting, as you may recall, and took a vote to bundle them. Subsequent to that, there have been a few people scratching their heads to say, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should indeed unbundle them. And I'll start with Rich, if I might, please.
Sure. Thank you, Walter. As you know, you had put in a lion's share of work into all the B1 zoning, and in the meantime, the state legislature had passed a housing choice bill, which allows for a lower voting threshold because of the challenges related to the work on trying to pass some of these changes where you're trying to increase density, parking, et cetera. And while I think it's admirable to think that you can, convince the whole entire room to vote for these changes, it seems potentially short-sighted to not take advantage and allow these to go in as a majority vote. These are 2 cornerstone pieces to the B1 changes, increase in the density and potentially the flexibility. So to bundle them with all the others that don't qualify for the majority vote, I think would be a little bit short-sighted. It's great to aim high, but it's a practical matter. I think it makes sense to at least put them separate from the 2/3. So you have essentially two articles, parking and density as a majority. And the second bundle is all the remaining other articles related to the B1, which would require the 2/3. As they would be sequenced on the warrant, these would be first. And if they were to prevail, then perhaps the remaining articles that would deal more with some of the design issues and how things were integrated, with the bylaws and so forth, might have a better chance potentially to pass through town meeting. So that's the rationale.
Thank you, Rich. Those of you who were with us last meeting may recall that Josh made a comment on this. And I'd like Josh to have another opportunity to do so again. If you could unmute yourself there, Josh.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I would reiterate much of what Rich just said, that while I agree with the sentiment that Aaron raised at the last meeting, that we have as a group worked a lot on the full package of the zoning, and that ideally it would be passed as a full package. But I agree with Rich wholeheartedly that the two items which would qualify for the lower vote threshold are very meaningful. And so if you could get at least those two passed, you would, everything we've been dealing with isn't an on-off switch, as you've all heard in all these conversations. There's a whole spectrum of feasibility and what will help certain properties and property owners. And those two will help a lot. So I think that providing those two items, the density and parking, which the parking of course is related to density, would give a lot more flexibility and feasibility, those two items alone. And then hopefully it would result in some momentum for the remaining items, and they would all end up being passed as a package. But giving all of this hard work as much advantage and opportunity to pass as possible, I think is a very good decision.
Thank you, Josh. Other members of the board care to comment or question or whatever?
If I may start, Walter, since I guess I kind of led the conversation last time, I'll just reiterate my point, and Josh has already kind of done that for me. So, these changes are conceptualized as a single package, and the thought behind them is important as a single future for the town of Norfolk. So I think, I don't want to lose sight of the message in light of this potential advantage that the state has provided. So while I agree that they should be separated for the point of voting, I think we should still be careful with our message and our presentation, in that, we as a group have come up with this collection of changes, and we're going to vote on them in two groups because there's two different voting majorities.
Mhm.
But I think the message we deliver needs to be that these are the collective changes that we're proposing for the town, and the benefit of the collective package.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Gary or Chad?
Chad.
I was ready to vote for them separately the last time, so I'm still prepared to do the same tonight.
Okay, all right, Chad?
So I feel that breaking them apart in light of what Josh and Rich have said makes a lot of sense. I will ask the question, if we decide to break them apart into two packages and only the first package, the 50% majority, gets passed, are there any negatives by passing one and not the other? So say the majority gets passed, but not the 2/3 vote gets passed. Would there be any negatives to having part of the packet, part of the whole piece pass? I can't think of any, but I'm just asking. I'm asking the question because I'm not as intimately familiar with all these changes as the B1 committee is.
Well, I mean, if you look at the concept of the two items that are part of the 50% majority or 51% majority, you know, you're essentially increasing density without increasing allowable areas, right?
Right.
So, I mean, if a developer could figure out how to make a project more dense without being able to build on a bigger footprint or any taller,
So be it, right?
so be it.
Right.
I mean, again, you know, it's a pretty superficial statement and look, but you know, I kind of went through it, and to your point, Chad, and maybe I'm assuming Josh has probably got some comments on this one. Maybe we should let him talk rather than me ramble on.
Josh?
Sure. I think the what would potentially be lost if that were to happen is that some of the protections that we've talked about, actually, that the town has desired are in that second package. For example, the changing of the B1 core boundary would be a part of the second package. And that's a big part of sort of narrowing in on the properties which we're focusing on. And as well as one of the items which I think we're going to talk about in a moment or two, which is the increasing of affordable housing, is sort of another item that the town has desired that would be in that second package. So it's not, I don't think there's any, unintended consequences that would be a major downside for the town. But I do think there are desirable features of zoning changes which would be in the second package, which just wouldn't be accomplished. So I still think it's in the best interest of the town to pass both packages, of course.
Absolutely.
But I do think that going back to the very sort of core tenet of all this work, if we're trying to encourage mixed use development, that those two items which would qualify for the 50% vote are encouraging mixed use development in the town center. So it would help move you a little bit closer to that goal.
Yeah, it seems to me it's sort of a half a loaf type of approach.
Yeah,
if you can't get it all, you can get a half a loaf under that scenario. But Rich,
Yeah, but I think it's important to reiterate what Josh sort of brought up is that, you know, our goal sort of for setting the boundary of the B1 district in a smaller area, the inner core of the B1 district was to sort of prevent larger scale, higher density development throughout the entire district. So if, you know, just to reiterate his point, if we were to pass the majority and not the 2/3, then in concept, you could have a larger project outside of the B1 inner core than inside it.
Right.
I had a second question, and this was, has this been passed on to the select board, and what's their thoughts on it? Because last time we passed this on to the select board, they recommended, I don't know if it was the select board or the advisory committee, I forget exactly which one, but they recommended breaking it out into a separate articles and breaking it all out instead of having a bundled package. And I think our intent was two packages now, and instead of just one, two, but not break it up. And I just wanted to know what the select board's thoughts were on that.
What do you mean not break it up? We are breaking it up by putting it into.
But the last time we did this, which was I think it was 2 years ago, they broke each little section into a voting item.
Okay. So they had like 10 articles. I see what you're saying. Yeah, right.
I know Blythe raised her hand. I think she'll probably say, for the most part, they don't think they've taken an official opinion vote on this, but they've deferred to the planning board as far as bundling, unbundling. I think so that would be kind of point one. There was quite a bit in the 2019 though when that was packaged, so there was, I think it was more than just bundling in that case, but
it could have been.
Yeah.
Blythe has her hand up. Let's let her speak.
Sure. Yep.
So I would echo what Rich just said. The board is having an extra meeting next Tuesday, the 30th, and I have actually put the 3 articles in the warrant as they're proposed to you. The 3rd article is the actual map change. And I've put them in the order that Richard recommended. My sense, I mean, they haven't talked about it, but my sense is that they'll be supportive of it. And then tomorrow night, we'll all be back together again for the B1, conversation with the advisory committee. I think that will tell us a lot as well tomorrow night. So.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you.
just real quick, if we could clarify too on what we did last time with the select board. They didn't unbundle all of the items, Chad. I believe they just unbundled. They changed it into 2 groups. There were, and again, I'm paraphrasing here. There were the 2 articles that they thought might pass, and then there was everything else that they thought might be more objectionable.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yep.
All right, any further discussion by board members?
And so just before you or actually, I'll pause and then I'll say something. Sorry.
Okay, I hear nothing. Anyone else in the audience care to comment or make a suggestion before we move on to a vote?
I don't see any.
See any hands, Rich?
No.
Okay. All right, then Chair will entertain a motion to separate the 2 articles requiring majority vote from the remaining articles which require 2/3 vote, and to sequence the votes in such that the majority vote articles come first.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? All right, Mr. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Peck,
Aye.
Mr. Searle.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, so we have that one behind us. The next one is the affordable requirement for the B1. As you may recall, and the discussion last time went on for quite a while, and my position was that we should not increase step functions for affordable as the number of units rose, but we should stick with 10%. And I based that on a fear that I had that it would only encourage 40B development. And I promise that I will not go on as long as I went on last time. However, I would like to make one argument that we did not hear last time for keeping this at 10% to discourage 40B and encourage mixed use development. Right now, if all these articles pass, we will have a 30,000 square foot minimum lot and a 15,000 maximum square foot building footprint. If I read these right, now you could take that 15,000 square foot footprint, which at the moment requires commercial on the first floor, and with a 40B, you could say, wait a minute, I can probably get 6 housing units on that footprint, and maybe one extra one would be required to be an affordable because of the 40B. Oh, my phone's going off, but it's okay. My wife got it. So you might have an extra affordable there, but you'd have at least 4, if not 5 units that you could sell instead of trying to lease the units to commercial developments, perhaps, which is not impossible, but it is very difficult. So right away, as soon as you finish those units, you can put them on the market, sell them or rent them, and you'd have your money in hand if you sold them, as opposed to having to look for rentals for the commercial property. It seems to me it's a no-brainer that you'd go 40B. You certainly wouldn't go with the commercial requirement. And if you did go 40B, what we'd result in is a large residential unit only within the B1 core, and not what we want, which is mixed use with commercial on the first floor. So that's the argument. I've thought about it. It really scares me, frankly, that all this good work is going to result in more housing and not commercial development. So Rich has a table up that he wants to talk to, and I think we should hear what he has to say as well.
Thank you, Walter. So I put together a spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is adaptable to what's in the, essentially, if you go from 10 all the way up, the percentages. This one actually represents a citizen petition as it relates to dwelling units, but for discussion purposes for the B1, you can just start at the 10 to 12 and then go from there to see the number of units, what the impact would be. As Walter mentioned, I think the overall goal of the B1 and the work to look at the zoning was to provide better opportunity for mixed-use development and make it more feasible to be done within town center. And yes, affordable housing plays a part in that, but it wasn't designed, I don't think, the intent at the expense of negating the work to try to encourage mixed-use development, which does have a commercial piece to it. The town, the original project through the B1, it was in the fall of 2019. Well, now we stand here with these articles going before town meeting in May of 2021. On the same town meeting, it's recommended and hopefully approved by town meeting to appropriate money to produce another housing production plan. That wasn't the case 2 years ago. That is where we are today. We are also in safe harbor today. So to move to increase the affordability and potentially wipe out the gains, I think would be short-sighted to allow the town to have a thoughtful process as it relates to financial feasibility of increasing affordability, whereby it might push property owners to do the opposite, would be to file 40B projects, not develop under the zoning. That is something that needs to be evaluated in the housing production plan, because I don't believe we want to be proactive to get to 10%. I don't think the overall goal is to turn property owners and point them up against that. My only option is to try to sell it off as a 40B, whereas you end up with a lot more 40B units, hence higher density, hence potentially more impacts to the town overall. What I'm asking, and I ask the board when it comes to that point, to keep it status quo, keep it at 10%, and let's do more financial analysis from developers' perspectives, outside third party, to make sure we're not shortchanging this effort as it relates to the B1. You already have in the B1 a 40B project, that's Boyd Crossing. You already have a 40B at 25 Rockwood Road in the B1. You already have a 40B at 194 Main Street. So by effect, you're stacking the cards potentially to direct people to 40B. And I think the goal of this project is to unlock development as it relates to mixed use. Yes, affordable housing has a place in town center, but not at the expense, I think, in relation to this effort. What I'm asking is a friendly amendment to keep it at 10%. At the same time, do the work of the housing production plan. If it makes sense, then come back with something, but not react to it on fear based on what is going on, because fear drives reactionary bad decisions with unintended consequences.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, Aaron, Gary, Chad.
Well, yes, I'll speak, and there'll be no fear in what I'm about to say. But I see two reasons. The keeping it at 10% changes nothing. The gap that we have in affordable housing continues to grow because we're at 10%, because there's no burden on developments that are 10 units or less. So every year that passes, the gap gets bigger and bigger. And the second point I guess I would make is that the towns around us are moving to 15% and higher numbers as well. I don't see it as becoming a driver for existing property owners to all migrate to 40B at this point when they've had the opportunity to go 40B the entire time. So I never thought the 15% was that much of an issue or that much of a change, and it would have only burdened larger developments be above the 10 units. That's what my intent was. I wasn't for the 20%, and then it appeared last time and we were voting on it. I'm fine with 15. I think it needs to be raised from the 10. And that would be my vote.
Chad?
I don't have a strong opinion. I'll be honest. I don't have a strong opinion, and I definitely do not want to create any fear that would force us into more 40Bs. I want to do everything we can to encourage a mixed use downtown. So if we feel that we need to make an adjustment, and that's a smart decision, then we should do that.
Can I respond to Gary after Aaron?
Sure.
Okay.
Walter, I think, unfortunately, this conversation is unfortunate. You know, the work of the B1 committee settled on what I thought was a pretty successful mix of height, size, number of units, affordability, et cetera. And through the course of negotiations, that those incentives that were offered to developers, larger lot sizes or larger building sizes, larger height sizes, was whittled down in order to make it quote unquote more acceptable. An unintended consequence is now we're talking about sacrificing affordable housing in our town, something our town sorely needs. Not only for offering a mix of housing, but to start dealing with this 40B issue that we talk about every time we have a meeting. So as I'll repeat myself from last time, there are other incentives that can be offered rather than sacrificing something as important as affordable housing. We can increase building size. We can increase heights. There are any number of things that we talked about through the B1 and planning board committee conversations. I'll also reiterate that based on the lot sizes we're talking about, we're having a conversation over one or two affordable units. And to reiterate Gary's point, if on the larger lots, it makes all the more sense to have more affordable units. So when you're talking about the smaller lots, you're literally talking about one unit. And I don't know that we should sacrifice the long-term needs and visions of the town because we think we're not sure whether a developer will go 40B or not, right? The goal of zoning is to set the guidelines for what the town would like to see for its town center. And my opinion is the town center should like to see a mix of affordable housing units. And again, the town center is the place where those affordable houses should be. And I don't think we should compromise the affordable housing numbers to encourage development. I think we should change the other parts of our zoning guidelines to encourage affordable housing development.
All right, Rich, you wanted to come back?
Sure. So the overall goal of the town as it relates to 40B creation of housing as it relates to the housing production plan is not isolated to just the B1 portion of town. If you recall, the last plan that was done, there was ample discussion within there as it relates to Southwood, which is now one site that's come forward for the town. And to make real significant inroads as it relates to 40B. You need to have rental related projects from a mathematical standpoint to get to those numbers that you need to really make significant strides as it relates to 40B. So it's not, I think that the idea is like, this is an isolation that we're just talking about not doing any of the other tools that are in the toolbox. So those other things need to be equally moved on to try to create that affordable housing. And our neighbors aren't in the same boat as we are in the town of Norfolk. Yes, there are other towns that are doing that, but the other towns also have mixed use for which they have to draw on. We have in the center of town one new mixed use building that's been built in the center of town. It's been the functional goal of the town to create mixed use development for all the way back since the 1992 plan up to the 2007 plan up to the present. And that still hasn't come to fruition except for what's next door. So I think the concern is that I understand what Aaron had talked about, but at the same time, there is a significant fear in town, and you can't ignore it, that the town is not a town that wants to open the floodgates as it relates to development. So theoretically, yes, increase the height, do all that. But what happened in those discussions? It was bring down the height, bring down density. There wasn't this give and take where, okay, give me something else to create more density, to create more affordable housing. It was paring away. It was lower the height, keep the footprint smaller, don't give greater incentives for parking, et cetera. The game plan forward wasn't to create the incentive for affordable housing. Then you add the affordable housing. The goal is to have residential units subsidize the commercial space to make it economically viable for an owner to lease that space to a tenant that could afford it. That's the financial formula. And so when you add on top of it affordable, you stretch that. And this is what the concern is, that as it was, next door 18 had a struggle to put that all together. They had a known tenant who they were partnering with on their site to develop, and then got a long-term lease on an existing tenant that was already in Norfolk Center. Have these property owners try to go lease a space, make money, bring new commercial tenants in, and make it all work financially is the concern. It's not on top of all the other challenges to make development work. So I understand that. I think it's worth either status quo or dig into this a little deeper. We didn't do the dive to the extent I think we probably should after we were in January, we were at 15% with the B1, and then there was towards the end this push to scale up, increase more affordability, and all of a sudden, here where we are. And I think that's concern still remains today. And what I'm concerned is that we come back and it's like, this doesn't work. And you have to try and unravel it. So once you make these changes, if you keep things much tighter from affordability, as conservative as the town is related to growth, to try to open those up. I mean, it's great incentives. I know there was other talks about it. Tax breaks, people are complaining about their tax breaks. They're not going to give tax breaks for somebody to do development. That's not the objective mindset of the townspeople right now. So it's really just a testament where we're at. And that's all. I'm not going to speak anymore, but those are the points.
Okay, I just make one more comment, and then unless anyone else wishes to further discuss it, we will see if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to contribute, and then we'll proceed to a vote. But my comment is that to reiterate what Rich said, we have three developments in 340B developments with affordable, 25% affordable requirements in the center of town, two within the B1 and one just outside adjacent to it. And I'm concerned that if we put a step function in here, we're going to further encourage 40B within the B1 core and not achieve our commercial mixed use development. All right, I've said my piece. Anyone in the audience care to comment on this?
My name is Josephine. I represent, I guess, I'm a member of the zoning board, sir. I'm sitting on your meetings and listening to all this. I can see all the work that's been put into this and how it's all evolved, and the square, like the area you started with and where we are now. And I appreciate the last commenter, what he said. I know, like we've gone around town with that the zoning board has had 40B in front of them. You know, from a standpoint of negotiations, it's not easy to deal with. It's not the fast track. A lot of expenses go in with reviews and attorneys and whatnot. And I am not saying that, you know, mixed use is the way to go, but I'm not against or opposed to trying it versus what we've been seeing on the zoning board. We have to try something different if we want a different result. Maybe we can start. I know that you've decreased the area. We could start on just, you know, see how that goes, and then, you know, evolve, you know, as things progress, either to include more or to stop right there. But I do know that 40Bs are coming here. We don't have much say. We have, you know, some, you know, for some advantage where we, you know, we're going to partner with these developers with the mixed use. I would like to see more of that partnering rather than threatening the whole way in our meetings. I'm not opposed to trying something different at this point.
Thank you, Josephine. All right, Rich, let in someone else.
So I'm looking, I have Ed, Kevin Calcott, and Al Quiglieri. I'm not sure who.
Ed's on the B1 committee. Let's see what Ed would like to say next.
Thank you. When we spoke about this at the last meeting, I was supportive of the increased percentage for the affordable housing. And then listening to some of the comments made after and since then, I thought about why was I on the B1 committee for 2 years? What was the mission of the B1 committee? The B1 committee mission was not affordable housing. The B1 mission was to incentivize development in the B1 district. It wasn't an affordable housing initiative. So whether I believe in affordable housing or not, and which I do, that's not what the mission of this ad hoc group was put together to do. So if going to 20% is a disincentive that people believe is real, then I think we should go back. I think, yes, Aaron, I think there is only a couple of units here. And if those couple of units will kill development, then I don't know why we're doing it, to be honest with you. I think if we go to the 15%, that's more of a standard, and we get development, then we've accomplished the mission of why we've been working on this for almost 3 years. And that's my feeling.
Thank you, Ed. Let me just say that I personally support the idea of increased step function for affordable in the other areas of the town. It's just my perceived disincentive here in the B1's core. All right, who's next? Rich, let someone in.
So Kevin, well, Kevin's also on the B1, so if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin, please. Kevin, you're on the B1, sure.
Thank you, Walter. I'm really just going to echo what Ed had just outlined. You know, we worked for a long time in the B1 committee to try to find a great balance of being able to accommodate primarily for encouraging mixed-use growth in town center to deliver on the master plan's vision of a New England town center that's walkable and has commercial availability. I think that at one point we found a great middle ground that not only accommodated for that type of development, but also lent itself to the affordable development that we were looking for by leveraging the 40R program. When we brought that program to the planning board, for the reasons that had been cited in a previous meeting, they decided that it was better to go with zoning changes individually versus the 40R program. And from my perspective is at that decision point where we decided that we were going to put the emphasis and the priority on the development of mixed use as opposed to pairing it with a meaningful, affordable growth. So we talked a number of times about the percentage that would be included with this. I think we started at 10, then went to 15, then went to a step, then went to 20, then scaled back the step. And, you know, this forum right now is the first time that I think I've heard an impassioned pitch from those who we entrust to tell us that this stuff should go one way or another from a planning perspective to provide guidance on that. And this is great. This is fantastic. This is great input for us to be able to base this off of. But I don't think that we've had that kind of definitive, this will have these repercussions in any of our previous discussions. So with that being said, if we're being told right now that there is the potential, even just the potential, for these small units of affordable to be included that will impact our ability to deliver on that vision of a walkable town center and encourage mixed-use growth, I think we have to err on the side of doing what we can to achieve the primary goal and worry about the affordable aspects, at least the more meaningful affordable aspects in other areas within the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Al's got his hand up. Rich, can you unmute him?
He's got to do it himself. Can you unmute?
Oh, Al, you got to unmute your.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I have a question and a comment. The 15,000 square footprint that limits the size, is that per acre? Is that per lot?
Per lot.
No, per building. Per building.
what?
It's building footprint.
Yeah.
I mean, you could put more than one. So for example, in the build out analysis, we have, I could call it up just so you can see. Just bear with me a minute. I'll show you the spreadsheet. Where's the trying to, what the heck's my, that's probably right in front of me. Oh, here it is. Okay. Let me just zoom in so you can see. So for example, the larger size lots, Al, if you look on the spreadsheet. So for example, 201 Main, it's showing 2 buildings with 15,000 square foot footprints. 9 Liberty Lane has 3 of them. Well, 2 at 15,000 square feet, 1 at 10. I don't know what we did with the.
Rich, can you zoom in a little bit more? It's really small.
Yeah,
sure.
Is it based on the acreage divisible by a calculation? Or is it simply 15,000?
Yeah.
And if
So
you had 2.5 acres, you'd be able to have 37,500 square foot building.
Yes.
Or different buildings equaling that size.
Yeah, so it's more than one building. It's based on, 15,000 max, giving consideration to the coverage, the 80%, and then working in the parking associated with it. But in this illustration, there are more, there are more than one building on a few of the larger lots. I don't know what we did.
So does the bylaw actually state that additional buildings of that size can be put on a lot? I know you're using it in your table.
Yeah, so the bylaw doesn't say it's limited to 15% or 15,000 square foot per lot. It just limits the
building size.
The building size, correct.
Gotcha. So you could have multiple buildings on a lot of 15,000 square feet.
Yep.
Gotcha. So, my comment and I own 194 Main Street. I initially tried to do 2 different mixed use projects. The obstacles that were in front of me that I could never overcome. Well, the main obstacle was the septic system flow. The town had a bedroom count of 165 gallons a day. It finally did the adequate thing and changed it to Title V. But even with the 110 gallons a day, the amount of sewage flow that you can have on a 1 acre lot left over if you put 16 units in, you're limited. You'll probably drive those 16 units to 1 bedrooms to try to save the septic flow for commercial. And because the commercial, there's only so many dance studios that use limited flow. And if you want real substantial commercial, you need to have septic flow. You need to have, so if you really want to develop that and have a real mixed use, you need to figure something out about a sewer treatment plant for the center of town. Otherwise, no matter what someone like myself does, they're going to run the numbers and end up with, bare minimals for commercial. And that would entitle somebody with a mixed use building with 15,000 square feet of commercial to have, an office or an insurance agency, a dance studio, but not the heavy uses like restaurants or, a place that serves alcohol or lodging or anything in that respect. So until you fix the sewer, the septic and the sewer, developers like myself are limited to the choices. So now you take it, when someone looks at a property, you look at, okay, yes, I'm in the B1 core, but does it make sense to put commercial on this specific spot with the grades, how they are, are you over the bridge? Are you in the bridge? Are you really in that core center or aren't you? And then you say to yourself, well, the commercial is a loser. It's a loser. And what you rely on is the residential to offset the loser commercial on some lots. And if you increase the amount, so it's almost the equivalent of a 40B, the density and the allowances you get in 40B, and you'll get even greater allowances with septic if you do an over 55, because now you go to 55 gallons a day per bedroom instead of 110 gallons a day. So, I think a developer needs to have choices if you really want to build out that. It seems to me like the town doesn't know what they want to be. Do they want to be commercial, residential mixture, or do you want to be heavy affordable housing? And your bylaws should be scripted to the manner of what you want to be. If someone looked at a property and said, I really can't make commercial work on this property, I'd like to do it all residential, the board should have the ability to say, okay, if you're going to eliminate the commercial, then we want a higher percentage of affordable. And it's sort of common sense. It's a juggling point, okay, commercial really doesn't work in this spot. Residential really does. So he's not going to build us the commercial we want. Let's have something in the bylaw that makes it a greater amount of affordable housing, sacrificing the commercial. There are really no options. You just have to, you don't offer options now, and you don't offer sewer. So now what you have is somebody just doing the numbers. That's all they're doing. And if 40B makes sense financially, that's what someone will do.
Al, you may not know, but there is a large sewer study going on for the town center right now.
And that'd be great. So that's to script your bylaws without knowing I guess you could adjust them later on, but that's really what will drive the downtown.
Yep.
Commercial, residential.
Yeah, agreed. We need sewer, no doubt. Thank you for your comments, Al. Anyone else in the audience care to comment or raise a question? I can't see anybody here. I don't see. All right. Oh, somebody had a hand. It's gone now.
Yeah. Peter Diamond.
Peter, where is he?
Can you hear me?
I see. Okay, Peter. Yes, go ahead, please.
And you can hear me.
Yep.
I just want to reflect on the current housing production plan. And in strategy 1, it's to consider zoning amendments to the town center area to allow multifamily residential developments. And in strategy 1, Norfolk's town center, central location, and direct access to public transportation make it an ideal location to promote mixed use and multifamily development, which can accommodate affordable housing. So part of our production plan, along with everything you've done to the B1 to increase density, is to also accommodate affordable housing. And I hope that the board doesn't steer away from that strategy. And strategy 2 is to improve the inclusionary zoning bylaw, which is what is proposed right now. And I think we're going to lose something if we go back to 10%. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. All right, we've talked this through. I think it's time to take a vote and decide which way we're going to go. Either leave it as it is with the step function all the way up to 20 or go back to 10. So I will propose a motion.
Walter, if I might jump in, just because I think there's an important clarification. Mr. Diamond was going to make a citizen petition to change the rest of town, and there was a clarification that was going to town council to see if that impacted what we recommend in the B1 district. Was there what was town council's opinion on that discussion?
I don't have
Well, unofficial opinion, it will impact what's proposed with the B1 because it's in conflict with even the present proposal in the B1. And having been the case, the prevailing thought is more restrictive zoning would supersede the less restrictive.
Right, so I think in the interest of keeping things simple here, there's really 3 proposals out there, right? There's the stay with the current 10%. There's the 15% that was recommended by the B1 committee. And then there's the citizen petition to step.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you can't do anything.
If we were to vote to go back to 10%, and the council gives us feedback that says the citizen petition pertains, then we would need a friendly amendment on the floor of town meeting to exempt the B1 and get it back to 10%. We're going to need to wrap this up, but we have 2 hands up. I'll take quick comments and then we're going to wrap this up. Go ahead, Chad.
Walter, so if we go back, I was following up on your friendly amendment thing. If we go back to the 10%, I just want to get clarification on this. So if we go back to the 10%, then we're not making a zoning change because it's already at 10. If this petition passes, that would apply to all of town, including the B1. So what you're saying is you would consider where on the warrant is the citizen petition? Because if it's before or after depends on this friendly amendment that
It's
you're
after, I believe.
After.
right.
After.
So if the citizens petition pass, it overlay if we don't make a change and we stay at 10 and the citizens petition pass, it overlays on top of us.
That is true.
Right.
And therefore, we would need to make an amendment on the town floor to try to get the B1 exempted back to 10%.
During the citizens petition, can you do
Yes.
it?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay, so you can make a friendly amendment to the citizens petition on the floor?
You can, yes.
Okay.
It
Just-
may or may not succeed, but you can do it, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to get clarification to understand that.
Fair
Okay.
enough. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Al, you've had a chance to say, Blythe wishes to raise her hand. Please, Blythe, go ahead.
Just very quickly, right now, it's on the warrant, the citizen petition. We typically put them at the end. But it's certainly, as you know, up to the select board, what order they want to put it in. If they felt it should come earlier and the B1 should come later. And that's how the town would like to run town meeting, they could choose to do that.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the clarification. Al, you wish to speak?
Yes, I do. And shame on me. This is town-wide?
No, there's a separate citizen petition to go townwide to increase the affordable in a step function that I don't have in front of me, but it's sponsored by Mr. Diamond, and it is going to be on the warrant.
Yeah. So on my, this is just the cause and effect of a bylaw like this on the Hill Street project. And I don't know if it has a grandfathering rights or not, as far as the affordable goes, but it seems to me the chart rounded up would have 3 affordables for 18 units as opposed to 1 affordable as approved today. I can tell you that 2 additional affordables makes that project not feasible. And so that would drive that project, if it's not grandfathered, into a 40B.
Mhm, mhm.
The infrastructure cost to bring the town water up the hill, and along with the electric power that's necessary for a project like that, it can't be sustained with 15 affordable units. I mean, 15 market units. It just can't. I've done these numbers.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
you know, that's probably a project that's 2.6 acres. That could be a 70-unit apartment building.
Well, thank you for that, but that's,
You're welcome.
that's really a little bit off target of what we're trying to talk about here, just in the town center. Okay, so one more time, I will make a motion to leave the affordable requirement in the B1 core at 10% affordable. Do I have a second? I need a second, gentlemen. Mr. Searle, will you second it? Care not
Not
to?
at 10%.
Okay. Mr. Peck, will you second it?
I will second it.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion before we take a vote?
Yes. What is the voting process?
What is the
You know,
voting
if
process?
we vote on 10%, then are we saying that we're not going to vote on 15 or stepped? And-
That's right. That's right.
Right. But can I make a motion to vote in the opposite direction?
Not until this one is.
We have to close this out.
We got to close this out. Yeah.
And just for procedural point of view on this, if it remains, if the vote does, the wish is to go with 10%, then you do not need an amendment to H3, which is proposed right now, because status quo 10% is within the existing inclusionary bylaw. So you would just remove your affordable amendment to town meeting.
Yeah. That article would come off the list, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor. It has been seconded. All right. Chair votes aye. Mr. Hunt?
Nay.
Mr. Hunt votes nay. Mr. Peck?
Aye.
And Mr. Searle?
Nay.
Well, we do not have a majority. We have a tie, which means that the motion is not accepted.
Correct.
All right.
Is there,
Which means that we stand where we are, which is the increment that takes us up through 15 all the way to 20. That concludes our agenda. However, since the
Walter,
agenda,
I think we've got 2 issues with that though, right? Our current vote on the steps is different than the town amended, the citizen petition steps.
that's
right?
true. That's true.
So is there any value in simplifying this and changing to the citizen petition numbers?
I don't propose to do that, but you can make a motion to that effect if you wish.
so you just
For that matter, there could be value in voting for 15%.
Yeah.
So
All right, make a motion if you wish.
I would motion to amend the stepped numbers that we approved last time to align with the citizen petition in an effort to simplify what is being presented to the town at the town meeting.
Can I ask before you make the motion? The citizen petition, if I'm recalling correctly, started at 6 units. Is that what your intent is, Aaron? Or did you
Yes, I
want-
think we voted to modify it to start at 10, I believe, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so Yeah, just for clarification, you originally had it in sync with the citizen petition at the last meeting, and I say the last meeting in March earlier. What's on the screen? You see my screen right now?
No.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me just screen share. So if you see, the amendment was to start at 10, not down to 6, 10 to 12, 10%, and then scale it up from there all the way up to 20%. And so that's what you have. So if you vote to reverse it, you would make it consistent with the citizen petition, or you keep it the way it is, or some other amendment.
If we vote to keep it consistent with the citizen petition, what you have on the screen changes in only one place, correct?
Yeah,
Changes-
yeah, we'll go to 6.
Right, between 10 and 12 becomes between 6 and 12, right?
Right,
Other than that, everything is the same.
correct.
So before we vote, could we ask Mr. Diamond if he's willing to accept what was approved by the planning board last time as his petition? As I'm assuming it's his citizen petition.
It is his, you can ask him, sure, ask him.
Excuse me,
Mr.
what's the
Diamond,
question?
Mr. Diamond, and my goal here is to try and simplify what we're asking the town at the next town meeting in terms of the stepped requirements for affordable housing. And as I imagine you'll remember at the last meeting, we had a discussion where the schedule started at 6 and went up from there, and the board voted to, instead of start at 6, to start at 10 units and go up from there. I believe the petition you plan to put before the town starts at 6, not at 10.
That's correct.
Right. So my question is would you consider modifying your citizen petition to start at 10 rather than at 6?
I really feel comfortable with the 6. It might come halfway to 8. But there's been too many 9-unit developments in town to avoid the affordable units, and that concerns me.
I'm just gonna step in real quick. Can we actually ask for that amendment? It's a citizen's petition, so would he not have to go back and ask the citizens to?
You're correct.
Agree to that amendment as well?
You're correct.
he would, yeah,
You would. Yeah.
Oh, because it's already been submitted to the warrant.
yes.
Right.
The alternative option is he makes the amendment at town meeting floor or not.
So let's just make this easy. Can we, I'll put my motion back on the floor to vote to align our stepped affordable housing requirements with the citizen petition warrant item, which starts at 6 rather than 10.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to amend what we previously voted to start at 6 units instead of 10 units and keep the remaining language the same. Is there any further discussion on this before we take the vote?
One further question. This does not eliminate the alternatives for supporting affordable housing. If a builder wanted to pay cash funds, as has occurred in the past, they do not have to have the affordable units on their site. Is that correct?
Only if they're contemplating ownership. If it's rental, they cannot buy out of it. So it has to be within the development, within the building. So that's not on the table.
So to clarify, the cash in lieu only works for ownership, not rentals.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, we will vote on this. Mr. Searle,
Aye.
Mr. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Peck,
Nay.
chair votes nay. So that's a tie and we leave it as it is.
However, I would only ask that, I know John has excluded himself from voting only because of his ownership adjacent to the B1 district. This, are we saying this is exclusive to B1, or is this townwide what we were just proposing?
This is,
And is John able to vote?
this
No,
is,
this
this is
is
B1, B1
Just
only,
B1.
B1 only, right. All right, I don't think there's anything further to discuss on this particular point. Unless anyone has anything else to say, we'll move on. There is one more agenda item I think we need to pay attention to. Anything else on this before we move on? All right, okay, moving on. As the agenda was published, we're done. However, one item has risen in a letter from Mr. Bullock since the agenda was published, and that is has to do with the F5 proposed zoning change. Right, Mr. McCarthy?
Yes, although I would caution, let me just hold on one second.
Can we address this tonight?
No, however, let me.
Rich, you're still sharing your screen. I'm not sure if you wanted to do that or not.
No, I do. I just want to look at
Okay.
I just want to look quick at the agenda for the advisory board tomorrow night. Let me just see. Tomorrow, 24th. Where the heck's the advisory board? Oh, down here. Just bear with me a second, sorry. Where's the, oh, my screen just froze. I think this is on, my screen stops freezing. I think this is on tomorrow night for the advisory board. So I think my suggestion would be you are posted to it, you are posted as a board to attend the meeting tomorrow night. So I would, and now it's scrolling down. You could take it up. Does articles. Oh, you know what? Yeah, so it is within the article. I think it's 22. So you could take this up tomorrow night, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, fair enough. Before we move on then, since we're all here in terms of the board, except for John, at least you could give us the Zoom link for tomorrow night's advisory board meeting, so we don't have to hunt for that tomorrow.
I will I thought I sent it already, so I'll send it.
You probably did, but give me the number.
The number. All right. Just bear with me. I can go back to the advisory board. Nope. So it's right there on the screen.
Just a reminder too, that the Zoom links are on the town meeting calendar for every meeting.
Those of us.
Gary's smirking at me.
Can you see on the screen, my screen?
You're not sharing anymore.
Not sharing.
I continue to forget every month that they're
It's
there.
okay. I'm going to keep reminding you guys to remember where all the Zoom.
853-4328-5874.
Yep. So Rich, click on that details and agendas and show them where it is.
Yeah.
So you go right there. You go down. You see where it says join Zoom meeting? You're going to click right on that link and it's going to bring you right to the Zoom meeting.
There's the passcode, which is our zip code.
Oh, okay. See, I don't use a passcode with my meetings, but
Well, it's easy to remember. It's Norfolk.
I like that.
good idea.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Rich, for indulging us who are technically challenged here. All right. I think we've reached the end of our agenda for this evening, unless there's any other new business.
I think we've covered.
Searle.
Aye.
Mr. Hunt.
Hi.
Mr. Peck.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.